On this Thursday night, Ukraine's hunt for people collaborating with the Kremlin. From doctors to tax collectors and teachers.
She taught that Kherson belonged to Russia.
Global's Jeff Semple reports from Kherson. The RCMP's future after Commissioner Brenda Lucki leaves.
There's serious problems.
Why making any meaningful changes could be difficult. Clearing the air, the American president on those flying objects shot down. And their goal is equal pay.
This is the time for them to push back.
The Canadian women's soccer team's fight for a level playing field.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight in Ukraine with an inside look at how collaborators and informants are being tracked down. Ukrainians accused of siding with the enemy. They have helped geolocate targets for Russian forces, even managed to infiltrate senior roles in government. Thousands have been detained in the past year and hundreds of court cases have been opened. In the city of Kherson, which was under Russian control for months, searching for the enemy within is deeply personal. Our Jeff Semple was there and has our top story tonight.
A Sunday memorial service in Ukraine held in the shadow of an atrocity. This apartment building was obliterated last month by a Russian missile, killing 45 people, including Svetlana's husband, a father of two. He always made us laugh and smile. Everyone loved him, she says. Compounding her grief, news that 7 Ukrainians were arrested. Police released this video of the raid. The suspects accused of helping the Russian military plan its attack. One of them is a co-worker of Svetlana's sister. I hate them, all of them, she says. They're traitors who will do anything for money. Across Ukraine, police are hunting for Russian collaborators, and perhaps nowhere more than in the southern city of Kherson. The Russians occupied the city of Kherson for nearly 9 months, and Ukrainian authorities believe they had help from the inside. Across this region now, you'll see signs and billboards like this one, with different ways for Ukrainians to contact the authorities if they know someone who helped the Russians. Since liberating Kherson in November, Ukrainian authorities have launched hundreds of investigations into suspects from all walks of life, from tax collectors who demanded mandatory payments from residents for the Russians, to police officers charged with torture of pro-Ukrainian activists. At this children's hospital, the medical director is accused of helping the Russians by refusing to allow cancer patients to be transferred outside Russian-occupied territory. We had children who needed special treatment abroad, and he would not allow us to transport them. We could only send them to Russia, this doctor says. Several Kherson government officials are also accused of helping to organize September's sham referendums on annexation. The occupiers created their own illegal institutions, including local government and police, this Ukrainian prosecutor says. They also committed treason in the information sphere. For example, he points to this local school teacher. After the Russians took control, she was appointed Kherson's new director of education and led the implementation of a new pro-Russian curriculum. She replaced the Ukrainian symbols and books with Russian propaganda, the prosecutor says. She taught that her son belonged to Russia. Prosecutors also charged a local journalist, Olena Sholostenko. She gave interviews on Russian state TV and launched a newspaper, claiming Russian soldiers were heroes, rescuing her son from Ukraine's fascist regime. She claimed the city's anti-Russian protests were fake. And after escaping to Russia herself, she reported that Ukrainian Nazis in Kherson were executing civilians. Global News spent a few days in Kherson and found no evidence to support any of her claims. Instead, we found a city under constant Russian shelling. She helped to promote the false narrative in Russian media to justify the invasion, claiming that we wanted the Russians here, says this local journalist. The truth, she says, is that many people in this Russian-speaking city used to feel close ties to Russia. But not anymore.
Але після вторгнення
The invasion changed that, she says. It united the city against Russia. In a statement, Shelestenko accused Global News of pursuing the goal of not seeing the Nazis in the armed forces of Ukraine, and accused Ukrainian authorities of conducting a witch hunt. We asked Kherson's prosecutor if their investigations into the collaborators were going too far. This is not true. We have very fair criminal law in Ukraine, he says. Also, you can see the physical results of their work with the Russians: destroyed buildings and loss of life. In a city of 300,000, the number of those accused of collaborating with the Russians is relatively small, but the damage done to their neighbors through their actions is impossible to measure. Jeff Semple, Global News, Kherson.
And the damage from Russian attacks on Ukraine is relentless. Officials say at least 36 missiles were launched in the past day, targeting infrastructure. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly has now left Kyiv. She was there for talks with Ukraine's president. She says Canada is backing plans for a special tribunal to investigate war crimes committed by Russia, and she announced more than $21 million in humanitarian aid.
This will include work like demining the streets, playgrounds, and fields, and helping to address the psychological impact this war has had on Ukrainian people.
Joly says much of the money will go to local organizations, including helping respond to cases of war-related sexual violence. In Turkey and Syria, the number of dead is still climbing by the thousands every day. Over 42,000 people are now known to have lost their lives, and the humanitarian crisis is urgent. Relief organizations are asking the world to step up. The UN has launched an appeal for $1 billion in aid to help earthquake victims in Turkey. Earlier this week, it requested nearly $400 million for Syria. The Red Cross has tripled its request for aid. It says it needs over $700 million to respond to the soaring humanitarian needs in both countries. Some Canadians with family in the earthquake zone are hoping the federal government will step up to help. Ross Lord reports.
For earthquake survivors like this teenage girl who spent 10 days trapped in rubble, a better future is far from guaranteed. Members of the Antebi family are living in the street in Gaziantep, Turkey. Their house survived, but it's been declared unsafe to live in. They're selling personal items to buy food and sleeping in a park. A bleak existence felt by other family members in Halifax, like grandson Omar.
Without any roof, and there are children, there is elderly people.
When Omar and his family came to Canada as Syrian refugees in 2016, the rest of the family moved to Turkey. He's urging the federal government to help reunite them.
If the government has chosen them to come to Halifax or even Toronto, it doesn't matter for us, at least leave the country, because it's not safe there anymore.
His younger siblings share his concerns.
I've been really upset. Me too. And very anxious.
There are similar wishes from Canadian families enduring even worse hardship. Mohammed Ajmal Nikzad of Calgary lost his mother and a sister in the earthquakes. 2 other siblings in Turkey survived, but are now disabled.
Any kind of fast-track visas that I can take them out there and taking care of them, because they need emotional support, they need treatments, they need... If I leave them out here, there's no one to take care of them, and I will probably lose both of them. I just kindly request them to do something for them, at least as a human. I will take care of them out in Calgary. I will work day and night if I have to.
In a statement, the Department of Citizenship and Immigration was non-committal, saying it's watching the situation very closely, adding, Canada tailors each response to meet the unique needs of those who require our support. A long way to go before the grief and disarray eases. Ross Lord, Global News.
Now to the mystery objects shot down over Canadian and American airspace. The RCMP today suspended the search for the object shot down over Lake Huron, citing deteriorating weather and the low probability of recovery. The search continues for the one shot down over Yukon. And today the U.S. president said those 2, plus the one downed over Alaska, were likely privately owned and not conducting surveillance.
The intelligence community's current assessment is that these 3 objects were most likely balloons tied to private companies recreation, or research institutions studying weather or conducting other scientific research.
Biden was under increasing pressure to explain why they were shot down. He offered no new information. Not all balloons are spy balloons. This website, for example, tracks amateur balloons called Pico balloons. They are launched all over the world, and some circle the globe, flying at high altitudes. There is a big change coming to the RCMP now that Commissioner Brenda Lucki has announced she is leaving. Her replacement has not been named yet, but Canada's Public Safety Minister said today he hopes whoever gets the job takes the force to newer heights. Mackenzie Gray reports.
In its 150th year, the RCMP is primed for yet another major change. Commissioner Brenda Lucki set to leave her post next month.
It hasn't been an easy time in Canada or for the RCMP, but I appreciate very much all her leadership and wish her the very best for the years to come.
A 37-year veteran of the force, Lucki was the first woman appointed as commissioner, and she billed herself as a reformer.
I plan to challenge assumptions, seek explanations, and better understand the reasons how we operate.
But changing an organization of nearly 30,000 employees proved difficult, and potential progress stalled by multiple missteps. Heavily criticized for her handling of the Nova Scotia mass shooting and alleged political interference, Lucki also irked advocates on her view of systemic racism after George Floyd's murder.
You know, it's a question I haven't been struggling with, but I've been struggling with the definition of systemic racism.
Rank-and-file Mounties struggled internally, with class action lawsuits served against the force for racism, sexual assault, and bullying.
If racist behavior takes place inside a police organization, that racist behavior will eventually make its way to the citizens on the street.
The scope of the RCMP also causing concern. From policing rural highways to investigating terrorism, the Mounties' broad mandate makes implementing meaningful change difficult.
When you look at the RCMP's ability to demonstrate responsiveness to community concerns, public concerns, or even governmental concerns, their track record is abysmal.
Another issue Lucki was criticized for, her advice to the government on how to handle the convoy protest, and we'll learn more about that tomorrow, Donna, when the commission looking at the use of the Emergencies Act tables its final report.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. Toronto police say a 15-year-old student is fighting for his life tonight after he was shot in the parking lot of a high school this afternoon.
This victim was shot in the chest area, or the upper chest area. After he was shot, he ran back into the school. The victim ran back into the school where he was tended to by teachers and faculty at the school.
It happened at Weston Collegiate Institute. The boy was brought to hospital in critical condition. The school was locked down for about 2 hours. Police say the suspect or suspects escaped in a vehicle, and they're asking for home security or dash cam footage from the area. Growing outrage in Ohio. Coming up, the fury and frustration after a dangerous train derailment. There was anger at a town hall meeting in East Palestine, Ohio last night, more than a week after a fiery train derailment of cars carrying toxic and hazardous chemicals.
I don't care about anything else. I don't care about giving reports on TV. I want you all safe. I don't want 50 cameras around me. I want to be watching a basketball game here, watching my kids play in this gym.
The town's mayor tried to reassure residents who aren't convinced enough testing has been done to ensure it's safe for them to return home. Representatives from the train operator did not show up at the meeting, saying they're worried about physical threats to their employees. Since being allowed to return home, some residents have complained of unexplained headaches, coughs, and dead fish and small animals. State health officials say all the testing done so far has revealed no safety issues. To the Bahamas now, where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met leaders from across the Caribbean and made new pledges to support the region. His biggest priority is Haiti, a country racked by out-of-control gang violence and political instability. The Prime Minister says Canada will deploy naval vessels to the Haitian coast and send $20 million in humanitarian aid. Turia Isri reports on why help is so badly needed.
A new set of eyes will soon be on the coast of Haiti, a country plunging deeper into chaos. The Royal Canadian Navy is deploying patrol ships off the waters of Port-au-Prince. They'll conduct surveillance and gather intelligence. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made the pledge at CARICOM. Caribbean leaders invited him as a special guest, in part to try to contain the security crisis in Haiti.
We have seen in the past that the presence of Coast Guard ships or ships there from allies significantly dissuaded the gangs.
Armed gangs are unleashing extreme violence. Kidnappings, rapes, and murders have surged since the Haitian president's assassination in 2021. Canada sent a military plane earlier this month to back Haitian police. Haiti's unelected prime minister met with Trudeau in Nassau. Ariel Henry warned the security situation is deteriorating. Henry and UN officials are calling for an international ground force, with the U.S. suggesting Canada take the lead. The Bahamas and Jamaica are willing to send troops, but so far Canada is not.
If some Canadian armed force or police officer are killed in confrontation in Haiti, what will be the reaction of Canadian people?
Many Haitians and people across the Caribbean are skeptical.
The long, sad story of Haiti has been everybody and anybody jumping in and trying to take control of civil unrest, civil war, and just making an utter mess of it.
Political scientists believe the first priority should be holding free and fair elections.
The dilemma is that in the meantime, a lot of Haitians are suffering.
90 sailors will be on board the 2 vessels headed to Haiti. But the deployment comes at a time when military experts say the Navy is strapped for resources. Donna?
All right, Turia Isri in the Bahamas, thanks. Persistent problem ahead, exploring why lowering the rate of inflation is such a challenge. After nearly a year of successive hikes to interest rates, inflation still isn't slowing down as quickly as policymakers initially hoped. And Gaviola explains why this problem has been so hard to tame.
All around her, reminders of sticker shock.
My favorite, asparagus. $7 for asparagus. It's ridiculous.
As a senior living on a fixed income, it is especially tough. Food inflation continues to soar, but overall inflation is changing. The price of goods, furniture, household appliances, and cars coming down, but services are heating up.
Prices at the restaurant, prices to go on an airplane, personal care services, those prices are more tied to the labor market and the fact that we miss a lot of people working in these industries now.
That, in a nutshell, is why inflation has been so persistent. There are signs it peaked in the summer, but getting inflation closer to the Bank of Canada's 2% target has taken longer than policymakers hoped.
It might not be problematic economically, but politically, you can't just keep telling the smallest cohort of workers that we have seen in 60 years, no, you can't even catch up to the price of goods. That's a no-fly zone politically.
Nearly a year of interest rate hikes from the central bank to raise the cost of borrowing, slow down the economy, and in turn cool inflation hasn't yet done the trick. Canadian borrowing rates don't affect global transportation costs, climate-damaged crops, or a war in Ukraine. But most economists agree inflation must be tackled because those who earn the least are most affected. So when will there be relief in sight? It's a moving target.
Probably early next year, inflation will have come back down to at least close to where the Bank of Canada would like them to be.
Right now, there's no consensus on whether high interest rates will lead the economy into a recession either. Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Fight for equality next, the tense labor dispute between Canada Soccer and its national women's team. Demanding equal treatment and funding is not a new battle for women in sport. And right now, it's Canada's women's soccer team who are in the fight. They won gold at the 2020 Olympics, but still find themselves exhausted and deflated by a labor dispute. Team captain Christine Sinclair says they are getting on with the game, playing under protest. At a tournament in Florida yesterday, they wore their Canadian soccer jerseys inside out during a training session. Heather Urix-West explains why the team is taking the fight for equal funding and treatment to the international stage.
On a day they're facing their biggest rivals, Canada's national women's soccer team is fighting an even bigger battle off the pitch with their own sports federation.
I mean, I think we've made it pretty clear that we're operating under a protest at the minute.
Right now, it's the most the team can do. Their strike notice over the weekend was met with the threat of legal action from Canada Soccer, forcing the squad back to work. The team says it's not treated as equals alongside the national men's team, not just in how players are compensated, but how the national program is funded as a whole.
Soccer has really grown in the last 10 years. Thanks mainly, I would say, to the Canadian women's soccer program. There's more eyeballs, more sponsors, more money. So where's it going, right?
In a brief statement Thursday, Canada Soccer said it's working to address the team's requests. If a resolution isn't reached, team captain Christine Sinclair says more job action will follow.
There's a FIFA window coming up in April where, we have said that if things are not just addressed, if things aren't fixed, we will not be going to that camp. This could be our most important fight that we ever have as national team players, and it's one we're determined to win.
The team's fight for pay and funding equity is something elite female athletes have been struggling with for years. But some say this is the team and the time to make a lasting change.
This is the right time and this is the right team. The women are coming off of a phenomenal gold win in Tokyo. Women's soccer, there's such a big momentum of the culture of soccer.
Even their rivals agree.
I mean, we're talking about the Olympic champions here. To have their federation, meet them this way after winning world championship is just wild to me.
The world already knows the women of Canadian soccer have nerves of steel. Now they're letting Canada Soccer know this is one showdown they're determined to win. Heather Urex West, Global News, Calgary.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Headingley, Manitoba. I know that spot. Thanks for watching. Farah Nasser will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I'll see you Saturday for the new reality. Bye-bye.